Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video I want to show you how you can get started with GitLab compliance pipelines. If you would like to see how, stay tuned. Compliance is a very important part of your CICD pipeline setup. For example, before building an application, we want to make sure that the source code was scanned for vulnerabilities, and as such it may become part of your compliance rules that before an application is being built, we need to enforce a SAST scan. There may be other compliance rules that can be built into these compliance frameworks, and the compliance framework in itself is actually not what I would like to talk about here in this demo. What I want to talk about is a part of the compliance framework, which is the compliance pipeline right here. Compliance pipelines are only available in the Ultimate GitLab subscription. So what I did is in my GitLab free subscription, I just allowed or signed up for the 30-day free trial for GitLab Ultimate to play around with it and also to make this demo. So let's go ahead and go over to gitlab.com and let's see how we can get a compliance pipeline set up. Here I have signed into my gitlab.com account and I'm in my demos group. Compliance pipelines and compliance frameworks are set up on a group level. So in this case, this becomes my parent group, demos, and then within this parent group, I can define or set up a compliance pipeline, for example, and then this compliance pipeline will be available to all subgroups and repositories within these groups. To see if any compliance pipelines or frameworks have been defined, you would go into the group. You go into settings, in general, and when you're in general, just scroll down a little bit and you will find here compliance frameworks. And you can expand that, and as you can see, I have set up 2 demo frameworks already, and this is where you would find them and see what you have here available. You can edit them, you can delete them, or you can add a new framework. Rather than creating definitions for our compliance frameworks in all kinds of different spots, the good idea here is that you create either a project for each of these compliance pipelines, or what you can do is you can create a single project that holds multiple definitions. I will get into a little bit more detail as we are setting up, for example, an example compliance pipeline. I will get started with this demo simple pipeline here. So if I'm going in here, you can see the definition. So we have our name, we have a description, and then we need to go ahead and provide a compliance pipeline configuration. I know it is mentioned here as optional, but seeing that we're creating our own, we want to provide it. The format here is you give it the group name, subgroup, and then you give it the project. And here before the @ sign, this is where you give it the file name. Then you can select a color. The color is important because when a compliance framework is applied to a project, it will receive a label, and this label will then be this compliance framework name here and the color that you have chosen. So this helps you actually to kind of sort it out a little bit easier. For the demo simple compliance pipeline that I have created here, I'm going back into my demos group, and then I have in here my applications in which I did apply my compliance frameworks, and I've created a subgroup here, compliance pipelines. And if I go into the subgroup, you see I have created a separate project for each of these pipelines. So let's go into the demo simple and let's take a look at what I've done there. So I have set up in here a .compliance-gitlab-ci YAML, and this is what contains my actual definition of my compliance pipeline. So if we're taking a look at it, let me pull this up. It is nothing other than a regular GitLab CI YAML file in which I define my stages, and then I have my jobs. And that's all there is to it. So we have a GitLab CI YAML file here, for lack of better terms. In this case, I named it compliance-GitLab CI YAML. You can name it whatever you want. It needs to just be hidden, so you have the dot in front, and it needs to be a YAML file. Once you have created that, you can commit it, and then you would go back to your parent group settings, general, and then you would create a new compliance framework, which I had done already. So you would just go into add framework, enter the information. If I'm going back to my demo simple here, I have my name, my description, and then this is the reference to the project that I have created. So this is anything or everything that you do need to create your compliance pipeline. Now the question is, how do you apply it to your project? For that, I'm going back to my parent group, and I'm going into my demo app CP compliance pipeline use here. And you'll see there's nothing in this. There's no other branches here, and I have no GitLab CI YAML in here. I have nothing in here. The only thing I did is I applied my compliance framework. The way that you do apply a compliance framework to a project, again, you go into settings, general. In here, you scroll down. You will find under general, you find compliance framework. If you expand that, here you see compliance framework, and all the compliance frameworks that have been created under your parent group will be shown here, and you can select that. Only the owner of a project can change the compliance framework. So once it is applied, if you have a developer with a developer role, for example, they will not be able to change this compliance framework. Even a maintainer will not be able to change the compliance framework here. So demo simple is applied. And if I'm going back to my project summary here, you see I now have this label, demo simple. And as I've shown before, no other branches. There's no GitLab CI YAML. And let's run the pipeline and see actually what happens. So if I run the pipeline, you will see that the GitLab or the CI YAML file that we have created is actually applied. And here's my test, build, deploy. Here are my jobs. And the pipeline is running. And the developer or whoever else does not have any opportunity to bypass this or change this. This is a very good way to enforce compliance rules in your CI/CD setup, in your pipelines, without the need to write your own code or your own logic to find out has a certain test been run, has a certain step been followed or completed in my pipeline. You can put all that into your GitLab CI YAML file. For example, SAS scans, DAS scans, whatever else the need may be, that can be all wrapped in there and then applied in such a manner. And you see my pipeline completes fully. So this is if I do not want anybody to have any GitLab CI YAML file in their project. But there may be instances where you do need to give the developer the opportunity to maybe add their own job into a project. And on top of what they're adding, you want to enforce specific jobs. So let's stick with the example of a SAS scan, vulnerability scan, that needs to run on any pipeline, but there is jobs that they will need to write themselves. So let's take a look at how you can resolve that with the compliance pipeline. Here I am back in my compliance pipelines group, and under here I have a second compliance pipeline set up. I call it demo compliance pipeline include, because in this compliance pipeline I am including a local GitLab CI YAML file. So let's take a look at the compliance GitLab CI YAML that I have in this project. I have my stages defined. I have one stage defined here as custom. And the important part here is that we need to put an include into our into our compliance GitLab CI YAML file. And what this include does is it includes the project's local GitLab CI YAML file. And you see that here by using the predefined GitLab variables, CI project path, CI config path, and CI commit SHA. You see by that I'm including project file reference, the current local GitLab CI YAML file, depending on what branch they're on. But that is included here. And then I have, again, my test application, build application, and deploying application here. And again, I have this extra stage in here. So how this extra stage plays into it, we'll see in a second when I switch over to the actual project that I'm applying this particular compliance framework to. Here I have switched into the demo project, demo app compliance pipeline use CI YAML. And you can see here in the label that I have applied my compliance framework to it. And you see too that I do have, in this case here, there's also, before I forget, no other branches, that I do have here too a GitLab CI YAML file. So let's take a look at that. And you see I do have a job in here. I do have my stage as custom. And I just have a simple script in here because for demo purposes I don't want to write anything complex here. But this is my GitLab CI YAML. So typically if you were to run the pipeline without the compliance framework, this job would obviously fail because the stage doesn't exist. But considering that we have applied our framework right here, we have applied our framework. Let's see how this pipeline actually does look like when I run it. So I go into build, pipelines, and here's a demo, by the way. Here's a demo of how it looks like that when the framework is not applied, right? You will get this error because the stage doesn't exist, so we'll not be able to run it. So let's go back to pipelines. I did run the pipeline successfully, nonetheless, for demo purposes here. I will run it again. I click on run pipeline. And now you see, I have my test stage here with a test application. I have my custom with my job. I have my build with building application. And I have my deploy with deploying application. And now I'm enforcing in this pipeline that's being run here, I'm enforcing my test, my build, and my deploy. And it follows that the compliance rules that have been set for this. But I also do give the opportunity to have a custom job in my pipeline and use that as well. One other advantage of using compliance pipelines is that if compliance rules change and something needs to be updated in my pipeline. Let's go with our demo simple CI YAML pipeline compliance framework. So if I'm going back to my compliance pipelines up here and I'm going into my demo compliance pipeline include project, I'm going into my compliance GitLab CI YAML file here. I will edit it in the web editor. So if we're going in here, once it loads, I'm going into my YAML file, and let's say we need to add a new job in here, and that job is verify that my deploy went, right? So I'm taking the easy way out here. I just go ahead and will copy a new job in here, and I will call this verify deploy. Verify deployment. We add a new stage. We call it verify. I add my stage down here. Verify. And here we're just printing out verifying deployment. Verifying deployment. So I've made this change to my compliance pipeline here, to my compliance framework. I've made my change. I will commit my change to my project. Edit, verify. I keep it simple. No T in verify. There you go. So edit, verify. We've done that. we can go ahead and close this page. I'm going back to my demo compliance pipeline include here. I have made my change. If I now go back to my application to which I had applied my compliance framework, and we're running the pipeline there, you will see that automatically my change has been applied here. Where the chosen state does not exist. Oh, we're having a problem here, so let me take a look. Let's take a look what the problem is. I have an idea what it is. I most likely made a typo in my stage. So let's take a look real quick. Compliance pipelines. Let's do some live debugging here. And if we're taking a look, stages, verify the, yeah. So I made a typo here, right? I will edit this file in place. There we go. We add our I into verify. We'll just commit our change to the main branch as before. Let's go back to our demo project here. And let's run the pipeline again. Which this is also a very good example. If you go on this route, you got to be very careful, because if you have this compliance framework applied to a lot of projects, as you can see, you can very quickly take out a lot of projects and their pipelines may not run. But the point here that I wanted to show is that we can make a change to the compliance framework. So here now I have my verify job, and it is a change in a single place, and it will be applied to all the projects that do use this particular compliance framework, which that is a very nice thing. But again, as just proven here, it can also be a little bit dangerous. So this needs to be done very, very carefully. Rather than creating a new project for every single compliance pipeline that you may need to apply or need to create, there is one other solution that you can do. You can go with one centralized project. I called mine here compliance pipelines. I just created it. And if we're going in here, I have created two CIML files. Simple CIML, which is the same YAML file that I used in my simple demo or demo simple compliance framework. And then I used here the simple include CIML, which is the same as in the other compliance framework. So the advantage here is that you do not need to manage possibly 10th or more than 10 different projects just to house your compliance pipeline definitions. You can also do this all out of one single project. So let's go ahead and change the compliance framework to actually reference these two files here, or let's create a new compliance framework. And then let's apply this and see how this works. To create our new compliance framework, let's go to Demos, Settings, General. Let's scroll down to Compliance Framework, Works, Expand. What I'll do here, just for ease, I'll just copy this quick because that makes it a little bit faster. Let me copy it. There we go. And let's create a new framework here, and let's call this Demo Simple, and I will append here summary, or let's call it SP for single project. Let me paste this in here, and the project's name is Compliance Pipelines, and the file name, and you see configuration not found. So if it cannot find the configuration, it will give you an error, and it will tell you that at the location that you have entered there is no valid definition. And the first one was simple-CI-YAML. So, and if I click off it, you see it resolved it, so it was able to find this. I will copy this again for the second one. And then let's give this one a color of whatever, magenta pink. Okay, let's use that. And we got to add a definition here, a description. I'll just put in here simple. And let's add this framework. There is my new framework here, and let's add another one. And we call this one demo include SP. And then in the description, I also just put simple, and then just paste this in here. And this was simple dash include, and it resolved it, and we give this a red color. And I just add the framework here. So we've changed this. We have our demo simple SP and our demo include SP. And for the two example projects that I had here before, let's change the frameworks to these two. So demo app CPUs, settings, general, compliance framework right here. And we'll change this, and you see here now the two newly created compliance frameworks do show up here. I change this to demo simple. I save my change. Let's run the pipeline to see that everything works as it should. With the changed compliance pipeline that we've added here, main branch, let's run the pipeline. And you see here, everything works as intended. And let's do the same thing for the demo app include. We change our compliance pipeline here, settings, general, compliance framework, change it to demo include single project, save. Okay, and let's run the pipeline here as well. And we will see that everything should work as it is intended. And hooray, it works, including my verify here. And now this way you can go ahead and you can manage all your compliance frameworks and the pipelines that you're setting up in a single project. We can now delete these two projects here, and then you have a single project in which you can manage all your compliance pipelines. One other nice feature using compliance pipelines and compliance frameworks within GitLab Ultimate subscription is the Compliance Center. So if you are on your, in my case, demos group here on your parent group, and I go into Secure in the menu, and then you have the Compliance Center here. In the Compliance Center, you see the standards adherence, which is the standard GitLab provided compliance framework that cannot be disabled. This will always be there, but you see here at least 2 approvals for merge requests, prevent committers as approvers. That is the compliance to your merge requests, what has been met and what has not been met. This is out of the box. We do have violations here, so you have a violations report. Here is our frameworks. These 2 frameworks have been created. You can also create a new framework from here, as you see. And then we have our projects here. So in this projects tab in the Compliance Center, you can see all the different projects that are, in my case here, demos, and in the subgroups you see all the different projects, and you can see too which ones have actually a compliance framework applied. You can also filter by the compliance framework, so you can go in the filter bar up here, compliance framework equals, and it will list the compliance frameworks that are available, and then you can very simply filter and you can list all your projects that, for example, in this case here, my one project has this framework applied. And if I need to change it, I can go in here, I can edit it, and I can change whatever I need to if need be. So that's one good thing here in the Compliance Center. And the other nice thing is you can also go ahead and you can directly from here apply compliance frameworks to projects that may not have a compliance framework. Feature flag demo, I can go in here, add a compliance framework, and then I get the opportunity here to choose a compliance framework or create a new compliance framework. This concludes this demo of compliance frameworks and compliance pipelines in GitLab Ultimate subscription. I hope you found this helpful. I will make all the projects that I've used in this demo public, and I will add the links in the description. Thank you very much for your time and watching, and I hope I see you the next time.